Hello, and welcome to a special Playback holiday presentation on Dredagogy, Undedagogy, Don't Look Under the Pedagogy, Pedagogy. I'm Leah Steuer. I'm a second-year PhD here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the Communication Arts Department. I am here today to talk to you a little bit about the techniques and exercises that I use as a teaching assistant for the course Survey of Contemporary Media, which is geared to undergraduates of all disciplines. So we'll be talking a little bit about how to engage undergrads as they learn about various facets of media. If you're a TA that's using stuff like PowerPoint or Google Slides to present as you lead section discussion, I'll just show you a few things that I do to make things fun and visually engaging and get everybody involved in the discussion, especially around my favorite time of year, Halloween. One thing that I really like to do at the beginning of every single section, you might get there a little bit early, students might be sort of filing in, so instead of enduring that kind of awkward silent time before you're actually starting the class, it can be fun to add a little something at the beginning of your lecture or your section to get people interested in the topic of the day as they're walking in and settling in. Some of my colleagues like to play a little bit of music or put a discussion question on the board. One thing that I really like to do is start every single section with a pre-show. So I let each class know that before they come in, they can expect something fun and relevant to watch before a section starts. And that helps to really encourage people to get there on time. Sometimes it might be something topical, like if the Oscars have just aired, I might show them a clip from the show. If there's something going on in the media, current events wise, I might choose a relevant video clip. Around Halloween, obviously I like to get things incredibly spooky and scary, but not, crazy scary, like fun scary. Setting an agenda at the beginning of section is super important. It's a lifesaver for you and for the students. Letting them know what different points you're going to cover during the half an hour, 40 minutes, 1 hour, as long as your section is, really helps to not only set them up for success so they can start preparing for what they're going to need to discuss later, but it also really helps you because it helps you keep track of how much time you're spending on each bullet point. So I'll always let them know how we're going to progress in our discussion, what exercises that we're going to do later, and usually if it's appropriate I'll also give them one last agenda item to set them up for what we're going to be doing in section next week. For instance, if we have a peer review coming up, it's something that I know I can prepare them to start thinking about so that we can hit the ground running next time. GIFs can really be our friend as teaching assistants if we are using projectors and presentations. Having taught film form in many different ways over the years, especially if you're kind of trying to visually show people what does a medium long shot look like, what does a close-up look like, POV shot, tracking shot, etc. There are a lot of really great, free tools out there and diagrams that you can show your students, but GIFs can be a really good way to demonstrate in a very macro form what these aspects of film form look like. I'll show you a slide here. It's unfortunately not very Halloween themed, but it is from the week that we start learning about film language and film form. So you can see little examples, specifically examples I've chosen from films that they might be familiar with, demonstrating different ways that the camera can frame a shot and move, and that can be a really valuable teaching tool because you don't have to spend a really long time verbally demonstrating what they can grasp visually a lot easier. Speaking of teaching film form, media form, textual analysis, another thing that is awesome to do in the classroom when you are teaching those things is to bring in a relevant clip for the entire class to analyze together. For my particular class, the students are required to write a paper that really explores form and how it starts to elucidate things like genre and processes of industrial production. So one clip that I love to use around Halloween time is Catwoman's transformation from Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. It is a clip where we sort of see Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman morphing into this much more sort of hyper sexualized and feminized figure. She's discarding all of these objects from her old lifestyle. She's in her sort of very sad and muted apartment, and we start to see how things like destroying props, destroying wardrobe and reforming them, things like lighting and camera movement really come together to start giving us messages about a character that aren't necessarily communicated in dialogue. So one thing that I do with the clip from Batman of Catwoman's transformation is I'll divide the students into groups of 5, and then I'll assign one aspect of film form or vocabulary to each group. So we're going to watch the clip together in the classroom, turn all the lights off, everybody's focusing on the clip, but each group will be responsible for really focusing in on that one aspect. So the sound group will really start thinking about the use of music and sound effects, volume and type of sound effect, and how that's aiding in our understanding of Catwoman's transformation. Another group might focus on editing, so how are the shots cobbled together, speed of editing, and how it goes together with the visuals, and what kind of messages that gives us. Framing, what does the destruction of each prop symbolize? So each group will then share what their observations were, and then when we come together in the discussion, people start to see how the fabric of media and all the different ways it's produced come together to create a very coherent text and meaning. Another exercise that we do in Survey of Contemporary Media, which is very easy to shoehorn Halloween into, is a media ownership exercise. So the students in this class also learn about what media conglomerates are, processes of ownership, franchising, and potentials for sort of mining production value and future profits from offshoots of texts. So the media ownership exercise, which by the way I did not invent, it's been sort of passed down in the course for a really long time, so I don't want to take credit for it, but it's an awesome exercise. Basically we're again splitting the students into 5 groups. You can always do more or less depending on how many students you have. And we'll assign them one text each. Students do usually bring their laptops to class, so we'll allow them to use their laptops to start investigating each of these texts. So they're basically going to be looking up who's the primary personnel, if it's a television show, what network is it airing on, who owns that network, is it a video game, who produces the platform that's needed to play the video game. The 5 texts that I have that are sort of Halloween themed include a variety of media from film to television to games. I might advise them, for example, they're checking out the Halloween franchise. They might start talking to me about who produced the original films, who's producing the remakes, what are the potentials for courting new and old fans and manufacturing items and drawing people in to kind of expand the profits of the franchise. I might also ask them to look at the video game The Last of Us, which you can play on PlayStation, which is in turn owned by Sony. So what are the potentials there for possibly producing The Last of Us television show or film, and how might Sony utilize its other properties, other companies that it owns, and its sort of horizontally integrated structure to make a Last of Us franchise. So by assigning these texts to each group, you really allow students to have a lot of agency over being detectives and looking for that trail. And then when they share with the entire class, people learn really surprising things from all of these corners of media and how franchising really touches us all. Yay! Thank you so much for joining me and Playback for this short video on spooky pedagogy. We hope that this inspires other grad students and early career academics to integrate a few fun things into their autumnal lesson plans. Look for hopefully more videos in the future from Playback on graduate student pedagogy. And thank you so much for joining me today. See you next time.